Have you ever heard questions like, "Do you work here?" "Does she live near you?" Or "Did you call me yesterday?" And felt a little confused about why the word do keeps changing? Many English learners understand vocabulary, but this small word causes big problems in real conversations. The truth is, do, does, and did are everywhere in English. You hear them in questions, in short answers, in daily routines, and even in emotional sentences. The good news is that once you understand how this word works, your English will immediately sound more natural and confident.
In today's episode of Speak English Every Day, we're going to make this simple but powerful word completely clear for you. You won't just study rules. Instead, you'll listen to natural conversations, hear real examples, and practice sentences you can use in your everyday life. By the end of this video, you'll know how to ask questions, talk about the past, and respond naturally using do, does, and did, just like native speakers do in daily conversations.
And this is not a grammar lecture. We won't overwhelm you with complicated explanations or technical terms. Instead, we'll show you how English really sounds when people talk about their routines, their plans, and their experiences. You'll hear short answers, casual questions, and natural reactions that people use all the time. This way, you won't just understand the word do, you'll start using it automatically.
If you've ever felt nervous when someone asks you a question starting with "do you" or "did you," this lesson is for you. We'll break everything down step by step, using clear examples and friendly conversations between Tony and me. You'll be able to follow along, repeat after us, and build real speaking confidence. This episode is perfect for beginners and intermediate learners who want to sound more natural and less like they're translating in their heads. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Speak English Every Day, the podcast where you learn real English for real life. I'm Sarah, and as always, I'm here with Tony. In this podcast, we focus on simple, clear conversations that help you speak naturally and confidently. We know that many learners understand grammar rules, but when it's time to speak, the words don't come out easily. That's why every episode is designed to feel like a friendly conversation you can listen to, repeat, and use in your daily life.
It's great to have you here with us today. Whether you're listening while commuting, studying, cooking, or relaxing at home, we're happy you chose to practice English with us. Our goal is simple: to help you speak a little better every day. We don't believe in complicated explanations or boring textbook examples. Instead, we use natural dialogues, real situations, and everyday expressions that you can start using right away. So, Sarah, before we start the lesson, let's just talk naturally for a moment, the way people do in real life. Yesterday was a long day for me. I woke up early, made some coffee, and then I did a lot of things around the house. I cleaned the kitchen, I did the laundry, and I even did some paperwork I had been avoiding all week. By the time the afternoon came, I felt like I had already finished a full day of work. What about you? What did you do yesterday?
Yesterday was busy for me too. I did some grocery shopping in the morning because my fridge was almost empty. Then I did some work on my laptop at a small cafe near my apartment. It was quiet and relaxing, so I actually did more work than I planned. In the evening, I didn't do anything special. I just made dinner, watched a short movie, and went to bed early because I was tired.
That sounds like a productive day. I didn't go out at all yesterday. I thought about going for a walk, but I didn't do it in the end. Instead, I stayed home and did some reading. I'm trying to build a better routine, so I want to do at least one healthy activity every day. Sometimes it's exercise, sometimes it's cooking, and sometimes it's just resting properly.
That's a good idea. I try to do something healthy every day too. On most mornings, I do a short stretching routine before breakfast. It only takes 10 minutes, but it helps me feel more awake and focused. After that, I usually do my emails and plan my tasks for the day. It's a simple routine, but it really works for me.
Do you ever feel like you have too many things to do? Some days, my to-do list is so long that I don't know where to start. I sit down at my desk and think, what should I do first? On those days, I try to pick just one task and do it well instead of trying to do everything at once.
Yes, I feel that way sometimes too. When I have too many tasks, I stop and ask myself, what really needs to be done today? Then I focus on the most important thing. It's easy to feel stressed when you have a long list, but when you start doing one small task, the rest becomes easier. Little by little, you do what you need to do, and the day feels more manageable.
Okay, Sarah, now let's slow down and talk about the word do. It's a very small word, but it has a very big role in English. In fact, it's one of the most common verbs you will hear in daily conversations. When we use do as a main verb, it usually means to perform an action, to complete a task, or to carry out some kind of activity. For example, we say do homework, do exercise, do the dishes, or do the shopping. In all of these examples, do represents an action that someone performs. It doesn't describe a specific action like cook or clean, but it's a very flexible verb that we use with many different activities.
That's right. And this is very important for learners to understand. In English, we don't always use very specific verbs. Sometimes we use general verbs like do to talk about actions. For example, instead of saying something complicated, we can simply say, I did some work, or I did a few things this morning. It sounds natural and relaxed. Native speakers use do all the time in this way because it's simple and flexible. You don't always need a detailed verb. Sometimes a do is enough to communicate your idea clearly.
But do is not only an action verb. It also has another very important job in English. It works as a helping verb, also called an auxiliary verb. This means we use do, does, and did to build questions and negative sentences. For example, we don't say you like coffee in standard English. We say, do you like coffee? The word do helps us form the question. The same happens with negatives. We say, I do not like coffee, or in short form, I don't like coffee.
Yes, and this is where many learners feel confused. They understand a do as an action, but they don't always understand it as a helper. But once you see enough examples, it becomes very clear. For instance, we say, do you work here, or does she live near the office? In these sentences, do and does are not the main action. The main verbs are work and alive. The word do is just helping us form the question.
Exactly. So we can think of do as having two main meanings. First, it can be a real action like I do the laundry, or she does her homework. Second, it can be a helper to build sentences, like do you understand? Or he doesn't work on Sundays. This dual role is why the word do is so important. It appears in questions, negatives, short answers, and everyday expressions.
When you start using the verb do in the present tense, one of the first things you notice is that it changes depending on the subject. With I, you, we, and they, we use do. But with he, she, and it, the verb changes to it does. This is a very common pattern in English, and once you get used to it, it becomes natural. For example, we say, I do my homework in the afternoon, or they do exercise every morning. But when we talk about another person, we say, she does her homework at night, or he does the dishes after dinner. The verb changes slightly, but the meaning stays the same. The important thing is to match the verb with the subject. This is part of basic English grammar, and it appears in everyday conversations all the time. Another thing to notice is the pronunciation. The word does is pronounced like does, not like do-es. Many learners try to pronounce it exactly as it is written, but in natural speech, it sounds short and soft. So instead of saying, she do-es her homework, native speakers say, she dvz her homework. Listening to this difference helps your ear adapt to real English. Let's look at a few more examples to make this clearer. You can say, I do the laundry on Sundays, we do yoga together, and they do their projects at school. But with the third person singular, the sentence changes slightly. He does the laundry on Sundays, she does yoga every morning, and it does a lot of work in the background if we're talking about a machine or a program. The idea is simple, but repetition makes it easier to remember.
Yes, and this is something you'll hear in daily conversations constantly. Native speakers don't think about the rule. They just say what sounds natural. For example, you might hear someone say, I do my workout before breakfast, or we do our shopping on Saturdays. But then they'll say, my brother does his workout at night, or my mom does the shopping during the week. The structure changes automatically because of the subject. It's also helpful to notice that this change only happens in the present simple. In the past tense, we use did for all subjects. So we say, I did my homework, she did her homework, and they did their homework. There is no change depending on the subject. That's why the present tense sometimes feels more complicated than the past tense for beginners. But with practice, it becomes very natural. To make this easier, you can think of a simple rule. If the subject is he, she, or it, use does. For everything else, use do. So you can practice with simple sentences like, I do the dishes, you do the dishes, we do the dishes, and they do the dishes. Then switch the subject and say, he does the dishes, she does the dishes, and it does the dishes. This kind of repetition helps your brain build the correct pattern, and soon you'll start using do and does automatically in your everyday English.
Now let's talk about something very important when using do and does in English, questions and short answers. In everyday conversations, people ask simple questions all the time, especially about routines, habits, and daily activities. To form a question in the present simple, we usually start with do or does. For example, we say, do you work on weekends, or do they study at night? But when we talk about he, she, or it, the question changes slightly. We say, does he work on weekends, or does she study at night? This small change is very important, and it helps the sentence sound natural and correct. Another thing to remember is that after does, the main verb returns to its base form. For example, we say, does she work, not does she works? The s is already included in does, so the main verb stays simple. This is one of the most common mistakes English learners make, but once you understand the pattern, it becomes much easier. Let's look at a few more examples. You can ask, do you drink coffee? Do they play soccer, or do we have class today? And with the third person singular, you say, does he drink coffee? Does she play soccer, or does it work properly? These types of questions are used constantly in real conversations, so it's very useful to practice them out loud.
Exactly, and once you know how to ask these questions, the next step is learning how to give short answers. In English, we usually don't repeat the entire sentence. Instead, we use a short, natural answer with do or does. For example, if someone asks, "Do you work on weekends?" you can simply say, "Yes, I do," or "No, I don't." You don't need to repeat the whole sentence. This makes conversations faster and more natural. The same thing happens with he, she, and it. If someone asks, "Does she work on weekends?" the short answer is, "Yes, she does," or "No, she doesn't." Notice again that we use does because the subject is she. These short answers are very common in everyday speech, and you'll hear them in conversations at work, at school, or even in casual chats with friends. Let's practice a few examples. If someone asks, "Do they live near here?" you can say, "Yes, they do," or "No, they don't." If the question is, "Does he drive to work?" you can answer, "Yes, he does," or "No, he doesn't." These simple patterns help you communicate clearly and confidently. Once you practice them regularly, asking and answering questions in English will feel much more natural.
Now let's move from the present to the past and talk about the word did. In English, when we want to talk about something that already happened, we usually use the past simple tense. The interesting thing is that, just like we use do and does in the present, we use did in the past. And the best part is that did works for all subjects: I, you, he, she, it, we, and they. We don't have to change the form like we do in the present. For example, we can say, "I did my homework," "She did her chores," or "They did the project yesterday." The structure is much simpler because did stays the same for everyone. When we talk about actions in the past, we often combine did with a noun, like homework, work, exercise, or the dishes. For example, "I did the dishes last night," "He did his job very well," or "We did a lot of work yesterday." These sentences describe completed actions, things that are already finished. The time expressions are also important. Words like yesterday, last night, last week, or this morning help the listener understand when the action happened. Let's look at a few more examples in context. You can say, "I did my laundry yesterday," "She did the shopping in the afternoon," or "We did our exercises before dinner." All these sentences describe actions that happened in the past and are now complete. The structure is simple, clear, and very common in everyday English conversations.
That's right, and just like in the present, we can also use did to form questions and short answers in the past. This is very important because people often ask about things that already happened. To form a question in the past simple, we start the sentence with did. For example, "Did you finish your homework?" Or "Did they go to the meeting?" Notice that after did, the main verb returns to its base form. We say, "Did you go?" not "Did you went?" This is one of the most common mistakes learners make, but once you understand the rule, it becomes easy to use. Let's look at more examples. You can ask, "Did she call you yesterday?" "Did he clean the kitchen?" Or "Did you watch the movie?" In all of these questions, the verb stays in its simple form after did. This makes the structure very consistent and easy to remember. Now let's talk about short answers. If someone asks, "Did you finish your homework?" you can say, "Yes, I did," or "No, I didn't." If the question is, "Did she go to work?" the answer can be, "Yes, she did," or "No, she didn't." These short answers sound natural and are used all the time in real conversations. Once you practice asking and answering with did, you'll feel much more comfortable talking about past experiences in English.
Now that we've talked about do in the present and did in the past, let's move into the future and learn how to use the expression will do. In English, we use will to talk about decisions, promises, predictions, and actions that will happen later. When we combine will with a do, we get a very useful structure that helps us talk about future actions in a simple and natural way. The structure is easy: subject plus will plus do plus object. For example, you can say, I will do my homework tonight, she will do the report tomorrow, or they will do the cleaning this weekend. One of the most important things to remember is that a will never changes, no matter who the subject is. We say I will do, you will do, he will do, we will do, and they will do. This makes it much easier than the present tense, where we have to change the verb for he and she. For example, in the present we say, she does her homework, but in the future we say, she will do her homework. The verb do always stays in its base form after will. Let's look at some real-life examples. You can say, I will do the dishes after dinner, he will do his best in the exam, or we will do the project together. These sentences show plans or intentions for the future. Sometimes, will do also sounds like a promise. For example, if someone says, can you help me later, you can reply, yes, I will do it. This sounds friendly, natural, and very common in everyday English conversations.
Exactly, and just like with do and did, we can also form questions in short answers using will. To make a future question, we simply start the sentence with will. For example, will you do your homework tonight? Or will she do the presentation tomorrow? The structure is very simple. Will plus subject plus do plus object. There's no need to change the verb, and that's one reason why the future with will is so easy for learners. Let's look at a few more examples. You might ask, will they do the project this week? Or will he do the shopping later? These questions are very common when we talk about plans, responsibilities, or promises. And just like in the past tense, we can give short answers. If someone asks, will you do the dishes? You can answer, yes, I will, or no, I won't. If the question is, will she do the report? The answer could be, yes, she will, or no, she won't. There's also a very useful expression, I'll do it. This is the short form of I will do it. Native speakers use this all the time when they offer help or make quick decisions. For example, if someone says, the kitchen is messy, you might respond, don't worry, I'll do it. It sounds natural, friendly, and confident. By practicing will do in questions, answers, and promises, you'll be able to talk about the future in English in a clear and comfortable way.
Now let's move on to something very useful for everyday English, common phrases with do. These expressions appear constantly in real conversations, and learning them will help you sound more natural and confident. Instead of thinking about do only as a grammar word, it's better to see it as part of common expressions that native speakers use every day. For example, we say, do your homework, do the dishes, do your best, and do the laundry. These are fixed phrases, and in many cases, we use do instead of another verb like make or clean. It's important to remember that English often uses collocations, which are natural word combinations. We don't say make the dishes or make your homework. Instead, we say do the dishes and do your homework. These expressions become easier with practice, especially when you connect them to your daily life. Think about your routine. In the morning, you might do your hair or do your makeup. At home, you do the cleaning or do the laundry. At school, you do your homework. These phrases are simple, but they are essential for everyday communication. Let's look at some practical examples. You can say, I do my homework every afternoon, she does the dishes after dinner, or we do the cleaning on Sundays. These sentences describe normal daily responsibilities. The more you practice these phrases in full sentences, the more natural they will feel when you speak.
That's right. And another very common phrase is, do your best. This expression is used to encourage someone or to talk about effort. For example, a teacher might say, just do your best on the test, or a friend might say, I'll do my best to help you. It doesn't mean being perfect. It simply means trying as much as you can. This phrase is very positive and is used in many different situations. There are also expressions like do a favor, do a job, and do business. For example, you can say, can you do me a favor? Or, he does a great job at work. If someone travels for work, they might say, I'm here to do business. These phrases show how flexible the verb do is in English. It appears in many professional, social, and daily contexts. Let's practice a few more natural sentences. You can say, I'll do the laundry tonight. She always does her best. Or we need to do a quick meeting before lunch. When you start using these common phrases in your daily conversations, your English will sound smoother, more natural, and much closer to how native speakers actually talk.
And that brings us to the end of today's lesson on do, does, did, and will do. I hope you found it helpful and that now these little words don't feel so tricky anymore. Remember, the key to mastering English is listening, repeating, and practicing in real-life situations. Every time you hear or say these phrases, you're building your confidence and improving your fluency. Today, we covered so many useful expressions and sentence structures. You really have a toolkit to use in your daily conversations.
Exactly, Sarah. And the best part is, now you can start using do naturally in your own sentences. Try talking about your routines, your plans for the future, or even helping someone with a favor. Don't worry if you make mistakes. Mistakes are part of learning, and practicing regularly is what really makes the difference. Remember, the more you speak, the easier it becomes. So start small. Use 1 or 2 phrases a day, and gradually build up your confidence.
Before we go, we have a quick favor to ask. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button. It really helps us continue creating these lessons. Leave a comment telling us which phrase with do you found most useful today, and share a little sentence using it. And of course, subscribe to Speak English every day so you don't miss any future episodes. We release new lessons every week with real conversations, practical tips, and fun ways to practice your English. Your support helps us keep making English learning simple, enjoyable, and effective. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Yes. Keep practicing, stay curious, and remember, every small step in English counts. Whether it's asking, do you like coffee? Or saying, I'll do my best, you're improving every time you speak. We can't wait to have you back for the next episode. So, take what you learned today, use it in your conversations, and most importantly, have fun with your English. See you soon, and keep speaking English every day.